What I am about to write is not fiction. I am sending this testimony because I listened to many stories on your channel late at night, and for the first time in years, I felt like someone might actually understand what I went through. I am from the USA, but I can't share my exact location. Let's start the story, without any delay. This happened during my final year at university. I was studying history with a focus on ancient civilizations, religious manuscripts, and forgotten texts. I had always been drawn to old things, not in a creepy way, but with curiosity and respect. I believed ancient objects carried stories, lessons, and fragments of human history that deserved to be remembered. At least, that's what I believed before this happened. That semester, our professor assigned us a major research project. We were required to choose an ancient or obscure subject, something not commonly discussed, and create a detailed presentation supported by original sources. Scanned copies from the internet were discouraged. I remember feeling excited. I wanted my project to stand out. I didn't want to talk about ruins that everyone already knew or books that had been translated 100 times. I wanted something rare. For weeks, I searched. I visited university libraries, public archives, even private collections. Most places were modernized, well-organized, and safe. Everything had labels, explanations, and warnings. Nothing felt special. One afternoon, while speaking with an elderly librarian at a small archive, I casually mentioned my frustration. He listened quietly, then hesitated before speaking. "There is an old library," he said slowly. "Not many people go there anymore." I asked where it was. He waved his hand vaguely and said it was on the edge of the city, part of an old religious endowment. When I asked what kind of books it had, he only said, "Very old ones." There was something in his tone that should have warned me, but instead, it fueled my curiosity. The next day, I went there. The building looked forgotten. The walls were stained with age, and weeds grew near the entrance. The signboard was so faded I could barely read it. When I pushed the door open, it made a loud creaking sound that echoed through the empty hall. Inside, the air was heavy and cold, even though it wasn't winter yet. The smell was a mixture of dust, mold, and something unpleasant I couldn't identify at first. The lights were dim, and several shelves stood half empty. A man sat behind a desk near the entrance. He looked old and uninterested. I signed the register, and he nodded without asking any questions. As I walked deeper into the library, I didn't see anyone else there. I spent hours looking. Many books were damaged. Some were written in Arabic, Persian, and scripts I had only seen in textbooks. Most of them were fragile, their pages brittle and yellow. Then I saw a book. It was thicker than the others, older, placed slightly apart. The cover looked like old leather, rough and cracked, almost burned. There was no title, no markings, nothing to identify it. When I touched it, I felt a cold sensation run through my arm. I paused, almost putting it back, but my curiosity won. I carried it to a table and opened it. The smell hit me immediately. It was rotten, like decaying cloth mixed with damp earth. I instinctively pulled my face back, my eyes watering. I looked around, embarrassed, thinking maybe something nearby had spoiled or fallen. But the smell came from the book. The pages were handwritten, filled with unfamiliar symbols and uneven text. Some pages were missing. Others were stained dark, as if burned or soaked long ago. As I flipped toward the center, my hands froze. Someone had cut the pages. Every page in the middle had a perfect circular hole carved out, carefully aligned, creating a hollow space inside the book. And inside that hollow space was a cloth-wrapped object. My heart started racing. I got really curious and wanted to know what it was. I unwrapped it slowly. Inside was an old metallic talisman. It was dark, ancient, and covered in strange ink markings. Some looked like distorted letters, others like symbols. The cloth felt oily and warm, which made no sense in the cold library. The moment my fingers touched it, my head spun. The lights flickered. The rotten smell intensified. And then I heard something. A faint whisper close to my ear saying something in a language I couldn't understand, though no one was there. I dropped the talisman and slammed the book shut. I sat there for a long time, breathing heavily, trying to calm myself. Eventually, I convinced myself it was just fear and imagination. I wrapped the talisman back up, placed it inside the book, and checked the book out for research. That decision changed my life. That night, I had a nightmare. I dreamed of shadows standing near my bed. The next moment, I saw myself trapped in a haunted-looking house. I heard my name whispered in voices that didn't sound human. I woke up, unable to move. My chest felt heavy, my ears were ringing. Within days, things got worse. I became angry without reason. I shouted at my parents. I avoided friends. I lost time, hours I couldn't remember. My body started showing scratches and bruises that I couldn't explain. Once, I went missing. Everyone was searching for me. 2 days later, a neighbor was walking near the graveyard and saw me sleeping there. He immediately called my parents and they took me home. When they questioned me, I couldn't answer at all. I felt like I had just been sleeping in my room and woke up only moments ago. My parents took me to many well-known doctors, but the tests showed nothing wrong. They said maybe I was under too much stress and needed rest. But things didn't stop. They got worse. Mom said I started to act like an animal and ate with both hands like I hadn't eaten for years. I always shut myself into my room. My parents realized that maybe I wasn't sick or anything. Maybe it was something supernatural. My parents were religious, so they believed in this stuff. They immediately took me to a church. There was a father named Andrew. He was tall and fit. After laying eyes on me, he seemed a little worried. He took me into a room and asked me if I had encountered something unusual recently. I said no, because I didn't even think that the book might have been the cause of all this. So Father Andrew called 2 of his subordinates, and they stood near me. All of them held a cross in their hands. Andrew started chanting something, probably from the Bible. I don't remember anything after that. When I woke up, I was lying on my bed, and my mom was sitting beside me. When I woke up, she hugged me tightly and started crying. I asked her, "What happened?" She said that after they started the exorcism, I began acting weird. I screamed so loudly and rushed forward to hurt Father Andrew. His subordinates grabbed me tightly, but they couldn't restrain me. I grabbed Andrew's throat and threw him away, and I said, "Don't you dare do this drama again. You are too weak to fight me." He woke me up, and now he is facing the consequences. After that, Father Andrew stood up and threw some holy water on me. I started to scream, and then I passed out. After that, Father Andrew called my parents into his room. He drank some water and told my parents that he wasn't strong enough to exorcise the creature inside me. My parents started begging him to save my life, but Father Andrew clearly gave up. He said he couldn't defeat it, and if he tried, everyone would die. My parents returned home sad and scared. After that, my condition started to get worse. I got possessed at any time and started hurting my family members. My parents called many priests, but none of them left the house safely. Some didn't even dare to put a foot in our house and ran away. I won't tell about all those exorcisms in detail. Otherwise, the letter will be too big. It was already 7 months of my suffering. My parents almost gave up, and I was like a crazy person. No normal clothes on my body. I was so dirty. I don't know for how long I didn't take a shower. I ate bugs and dirt. I laughed without any reason. I hit my head on the walls and did many things. My parents kept me locked up in the room and tied me up with thick iron chains on my legs. They only entered the room to give me food. When all hope was gone and everyone almost gave up, my father got a call from his friend. That call gave us a ray of hope again. He directly said, "Your son is possessed, right?" My father replied with a low and sad voice, "You already know about it, friend." Then his friend started to talk. "Don't worry, my friend, there is still hope. Your son might be able to get free from the demon. I have a friend from Indonesia. His daughter was possessed by an evil creature and suffered for years. Then they found a Muslim guy. He performs religious exorcism. He calls it ruqya. Maybe you should contact the man. He might be able to cure your son. My father didn't want to believe in a Muslim guy, but my mom wanted to try anything to cure me. She convinced my father to contact the Muslim man. His name was Ali. They called him Imam Ali. My father contacted Imam Ali through his friend and made all the preparations for him to come to my place. After several days, Imam Ali arrived at my house. I should tell you that I don't remember any of this. During that time, I was completely possessed by the demon. I heard these things later from my family members. So after arriving at my house, Imam Ali directly went to my room. He looked at me while I was tied up with chains. I looked at him with an evil look in my eyes. My eyes were bloody red. My room was filled with impure things. My room was covered in a disgusting, rotten smell. I was tied there. I had done washroom in that room. I know it sounds very dirty, but if you get into that situation, you will understand the suffering. I had no other choice, and my family members were scared to enter my room. They left immediately after giving me food. Imam Ali told my parents to clean the room thoroughly. They cleaned the room and cleaned me too, with water pressure from a distance. I was screaming and threatening to kill everyone who was cleaning me or the room. But Imam Ali said, "Don't worry, he can't do anything while I am here. Evil jinns make threats to scare people, and they play with your fear. Fear is their energy source, so don't be scared." He called the demon inside me a jinn. It's the religious term to define evil, invisible creatures. Muslims call them jinn. He said there could be evil jinns and good jinns. Good jinns never harm humans and sometimes help us. Imam Ali had 3 strong jinn companions with him. Hearing that, everyone stayed strong and cleaned everything up. They put a new light in my room. Before that, it was totally dark. After that, Imam Ali said, "Tonight we will perform the exorcism." He told my father to gather 2 or 3 strong young men. My father's friend was there, and my father called some strong neighbors. Later that night, around 10 p.m., Imam Ali, my father, his friend, and those strong neighbors entered my room. Imam Ali drew a circle on the floor and told them to put me in the circle. I was resisting strongly and tried to bite off flesh from my father, but somehow they put me in the circle. Imam Ali lit some candles and turned off the electric bulb. He used some other things too that were unfamiliar to us. Imam Ali started chanting something nobody understood. It was in Arabic. They said I was screaming loudly and the candles started to flicker. I was cursing Imam Ali, but he kept chanting. After a while, I got weaker. Imam Ali told them to release me. I immediately tried to attack Imam Ali, but I couldn't step a foot outside the circle. It was like an invisible barrier was keeping me inside the circle. Imam Ali took some water in his hand and threw it on me. I started to scream again, telling him to stop. But Imam Ali said, "Tell me who you are and why you possess this innocent boy." The evil creature inside me started to talk. "My name is Rezwal, and I am an Efrit-type jinn. Our race is the strongest. Long ago, I went on a rampage and destroyed many people's lives. Then one day, a guy came from Turkey and sealed me inside the talisman. Probably he gave it to someone to keep it safe. But as time passed, the talisman got weaker. The ancestor of the owner of the library was keeping the talisman hidden from the world. The new generation forgot about it and just put the book on a shelf." Imam Ali paused here and asked, "What book?" Jinn Rezwal said, "They put the talisman into a book and kept it hidden. When this boy went to that library, he saw the book and opened it. He unwrapped the talisman and freed me. I was so angry and enraged that I immediately possessed the boy to take my revenge on humanity." Hearing that, Imam Ali said, "You are a danger to people. I have to seal you again and keep you hidden forever." The demon Rezwal started to beg for mercy. He begged not to be sealed again, but Imam Ali didn't stop. He grabbed my pinky finger and started reciting something again. I was screaming and cursing. Imam Ali took out a glass bottle from his bag and opened the cap. Everyone saw a smoke-like thing come out of my body and enter the bottle. Imam Ali immediately sealed it with the cap and wrapped it with some papers that had Arabic letters on them. I immediately collapsed after that. Imam Ali said he sealed the jinn inside the bottle and that he would take it with him. During those 7 months, I was almost a skeleton. I woke up after 2 days and I didn't even have the energy to stand up. Imam Ali came to me, recited something, then blew on me 3 times. That day, Imam Ali decided to leave. My father thanked him a lot and offered him money. But he said, "I don't need money. Just cover the travel cost. And my jinn companions love sweets, so if you can buy some sweets, they would love it." My father immediately bought a lot of sweets, gave them to Imam Ali, and arranged a flight for him to return to his country. Imam Ali left, but before leaving, he said, "There are many unknown evil creatures lurking in this world. They are strong, but compared to the power of Allah, they are nothing. Allah is the only God that Muslims believe in and worship." I started to recover slowly. I started attending university again. My life became normal again, but I am still scared to go to a library. I started to learn about Islam. Maybe I will become a Muslim soon. Thanks for listening to my story. I just want to tell people to stay safe. Paranormal things are not a joke. Again, thank you for listening. A listener of Ghoul's Hearth. My name is Tomash, and I am writing this as a record, not as a story. I have avoided talking about what happened for years because every winter it comes back to me, clear and cold. I live in northern Poland, in a flat city by the river. This happened in January 2017. That winter was harsher than usual. Snow fell early and stayed. The river froze thick enough that the ferries stopped running. Streetlights flickered. Power cuts became normal. People stayed indoors, and the city felt empty, like it was holding its breath. I was 22 then and shared a small apartment with 2 friends, Marek and Anya. We worked different shifts, so we were rarely home at the same time. Our building was old, built during the communist era. 12 floors, gray walls, long corridors, and a basement that smelled of rust and damp paper. The heating system was unreliable, so we used space heaters and wore jackets indoors. On the night it started, Marek was visiting his parents and Anya was on a night shift at the hospital. I was alone. Around 11:40 p.m., the power went out. This was not unusual, but the silence that followed was. No hum of heaters, no elevator noise, no cars outside. Even the wind seemed to stop. I used my phone flashlight and lit a candle on the kitchen table. The flame shook like it was nervous. That was when I heard someone walking in the corridor outside my door. Slow steps, heavy, 1 foot dragging slightly. I assumed it was a neighbor checking the fuse box. Still, it bothered me because the steps stopped right in front of my door. I held my breath. After a few seconds, the steps moved on, slow again toward the stairwell. I told myself I was tired. 10 minutes later, there was a knock. Not loud, not soft, 3 firm taps. I didn't answer. No one ever knocked that late unless it was serious, and if it were serious, they would knock again. They didn't. Instead, I heard breathing. Right outside the door. Deep and slow, like someone trying to calm themselves. I backed away and locked myself in the bathroom. I stayed there for almost an hour until the power came back on. The corridor noise didn't return. The next morning, I told Anya about it. She laughed and said, "Winter makes people imagine things." Marek said it was probably the building caretaker, drunk again. I wanted to believe them. But that was only the beginning. Over the next week, small things started happening. Our apartment smelled cold even when the heaters were on. The windows frosted from the inside. I found wet boot prints near the door one morning, leading from the corridor into our hallway and stopping at my bedroom door. No one admitted to entering. At night, I heard the elevator moving even when the power was stable. It would stop on our floor and stay there. The doors never opened. Funny. Anya began to complain about dreams. She said she dreamed of standing in the corridor, bare feet on ice, while something watched her from the stairwell. Marek stopped joking. He said he felt like someone was standing behind him when he brushed his teeth. Then came the knocking again. This time it happened while we were all home. 3 knocks, same rhythm. Marek opened the door before I could stop him. There was no one there. But the cold rushed in like a wave. The temperature dropped so fast that the candle flame went out. Our breath turned white inside the apartment. From the stairwell came that dragging sound again, but faster, like it was running away. That night, we searched the building. Other residents said they heard nothing. No one saw anyone. On the 3rd night after that, Anya didn't come home. Her phone went straight to voicemail. The hospital said she left on time. Marek and I waited until morning, then went to the police. They told us adults go missing all the time and asked us to wait. By evening, snow began falling again, thick and heavy. I went to the basement to check the fuse box after another power cut. The basement lights were on emergency power, dim and yellow. Halfway down the stairs, I smelled something like frozen meat. I found Anya's scarf on the floor near the storage rooms. Then I heard her voice. She was calling my name. It came from behind one of the locked metal doors. Her voice sounded wrong, stretched thin like it passed through ice. She begged me to open the door. She said she was cold. She said it was dark. I reached for the lock, and then I noticed the frost. The door was covered in it, thick and white, spreading onto the walls. No human could survive inside that room without heat. And Anya hated the cold. She always complained. From behind the door, the voice changed. It began knocking from the inside. 3 knocks. I ran. That night, Marek vanished. His bed was empty. The front door stood open, snow drifting inside. On the wall near the door, written in frost, were words I will never forget. It is warm when you let me in. I don't remember leaving the apartment. I don't remember calling the police. I only remember waking up in a hospital days later with severe hypothermia. They said I was found barefoot in the street during a snowstorm, trying to open car doors. Anya and Marek were never found. The building was later sealed after multiple residents reported freezing temperatures and voices in the halls. They blamed faulty heating. The city plans to demolish it next year. I moved south. I live alone. I keep my heating on high even in mild weather. But every winter when the power flickers, I hear it. 3 knocks. Waiting for me to open the door. Hello, I am Alex. Recently, I listened to some stories from your channel and I felt like sharing my own experience that I had several years ago. It was a paranormal experience that I couldn't explain in any way. I hope the listeners will believe my story. Okay, let's continue without any delay. This happened on a winter night. I was traveling alone on an overnight train that cut through the countryside during the coldest week of the year. Snow had been falling for 2 days straight. Roads were closed, flights were canceled, and the train was the only way to get through. I remember feeling relieved when I boarded. Trains feel solid, predictable, safe. I took my seat in an old carriage, one of the quieter ones. Most of the other passengers were already asleep or pretending to be. The heating worked, but barely. My breath still fogged the window when I leaned close to look outside. The world beyond the glass was nothing but white fields, dark trees, and the occasional distant light from a farmhouse. The train started moving just before midnight. At first, everything felt normal. The steady rhythm of the wheels, the soft hum of electricity, the gentle rocking that makes your eyes feel heavy. I wrapped myself in my coat and tried to sleep. That's when I noticed the man sitting across from me. He hadn't been there when I first sat down, I am sure of that. He wore a long, dark coat, wet at the edges, as if he had been standing in snow for a long time. His face was pale, almost gray. and his hair was dusted with white that didn't seem to melt. He stared straight ahead, not at me, not at the window, just forward, completely still. I assumed I hadn't noticed him earlier. It happens. I closed my eyes. A few minutes later, I felt cold. Not the usual winter cold, but something sharper, like the air itself had thinned. I opened my eyes and saw frost creeping along the inside edge of the window. Inside the train. That shouldn't happen. The man across from me slowly turned his head. When he looked at me, I felt a pressure in my chest, like my lungs had forgotten how to work. His eyes were dark, deeper than shadows, and his lips were slightly blue. He didn't blink. "Is this your stop?" he asked. His voice sounded distant, as if it were coming from another carriage. I told him no. He nodded once and turned forward again. The cold eased a little, just enough for me to breathe normally. I told myself it was anxiety, lack of sleep, winter paranoia. The train suddenly slowed. Outside, there was nothing but forest. No station, no lights. The train came to a full stop, and the silence was immediate and heavy. Even the hum of electricity faded. The doors did not open. People began to stir. Someone muttered in irritation. A conductor walked down the aisle, speaking into his radio. I heard him mention something about a signal failure. That's when I noticed something terrifying. The man across from me was gone. The seat was empty. The fabric was dry. There was no sign he had ever been there. I stood up and looked around the carriage. No one matched his description. Everyone else looked alive. Warm. Real. The train lights flickered. When they came back on, the man was sitting beside me. I did not hear him move. I did not feel the seat shift. He was just there, close enough that I could smell him. He smelled like snow, metal, and something old. "This is my stop," he said. Before I could react, the train doors slid open. Outside was not a platform, it was a frozen clearing, lit only by the weak glow of the train's interior. Snow fell thick and silent. I could see shapes in the trees, dark, unmoving shapes that might have been people standing far too close together. No one else seemed to notice. The passengers stayed in their seats. The conductor was frozen mid-step, like a paused video. The man stood up. He looked at me again, and this time his eyes were filled with something like sadness. "They always stop here," he said quietly. "In winter." He stepped off the train. The doors began to close. Without thinking, I stood and ran forward. I don't know why. Curiosity, fear, or maybe something else pulling me. My foot hit the edge of the doorway just as the doors slid shut again. The train lurched forward. I fell back into my seat. The carriage lights returned to normal. People started moving again. Someone complained about the delay. The conductor laughed nervously and said we were back on schedule. I was shaking uncontrollably. I looked out the window as we moved away. For a moment, I saw the man standing alone in the snow, watching the train leave. Behind him, those dark shapes stepped closer, slowly surrounding him. Then, the forest swallowed everything. I got off at the next major station and refused to continue my journey. I told the staff that I was sick. They offered me water and blankets. They said the train had never stopped between stations. Months later, I searched online. I found an old article about a derailment decades ago. Same stretch of track, same forest. The train had stopped because of a signal error during a snowstorm. Several passengers stepped outside while waiting. They froze to death. One witness claimed the train doors opened on their own. Since that night, I avoid trains in winter. Sometimes when snow falls heavily, I dream of empty carriages and frost forming on the inside of the windows. And I wake up with the same question echoing in my head: what if one day the stop really is mine? Okay, that was my experience. I know it may not sound that scary, but it was real, and I know if you had experienced it in person, you would have been terrified. I have more stories that I heard from my parents and friends. I will send them when I have time. Alright guys, the horror ends here for tonight. There will be more terrifying experiences on this channel, so don't forget to subscribe and like the video. Share it with your horror nerd friends. If you've experienced something paranormal, you can email your story to the address in the description. See you in the next video. Stay safe until then, if you can.